Hello folks, welcome to OTD, also known as On the Deck, where you can get all the sports you need in 10 minutes. My name is Adam Morduna. This is my mom, Gina.
He is a journalist.
She's the enthusiast.
I'm enthusiastic because we are in the heart of it. We got the first college football playoffs out. Let's get into it. I'm ready.
The first round of rankings are out. We are going into week 10 this weekend, although we've had college football games through Tuesday, starting on Tuesday, all the way going on.
We never have a day without football right now.
We had Monday night football, then Tuesday night on Halloween we had games, then Wednesday night we had games, last night we had games, tonight we're going to have games. Just got to keep going. And
so we have games then.
Be like that the whole rest of the season where we're going to have games because there's so many teams and they have to get on TV somehow. And so they have to play on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
And some of those off-night games, the Eastern and Western Michigan games, are really good.
Yeah, because that's usually what it is. It's the MAC games or a couple Mountain West games.
Yeah, there was a Sun Belt last night. Yeah.
Right, so those are really exciting, like you just said. I love college football, so I'll watch it any time of the day.
And there's some great plays. It's good.
It's awesome to see these other teams get exposure, and so that's really awesome. Well, we're going to stick with the college football theme as we mentioned, the college football rankings just came out on Tuesday, Halloween night. And so now we're entering week 10, and we want to go back through our initial thoughts of kind of what we thought it would be.
Right.
We're pretty similar as far as what our guesses were. There's a couple changes, but
we're going to see if we were right or wrong.
Yeah, well, I know that I was wrong because I just going off of what traditionally the initial criteria to get to where you need to go is, I just went with that, which is conference, what your record is, and kind of who your players or who your coach is.
Right.
So I went with my initial thought, which I originally had Georgia and Alabama, Miami and Wisconsin as being just going off of being undefeated, the conferences and the team that they're in. That's who would normally be in there. And so, I was right for two of the teams, but the other two teams aren't getting any love right now, which I understand that. So,
well, I think it's significant as we rank where we had them because you had Alabama 1 and Georgia 2.
Yeah.
I also had Alabama number 1 and Georgia number 2. I had Notre Dame at number 3. Even though they're not coming out of a power conference, their only loss, and it was by like 1 point or 3 points or something, was to Georgia. And then number 4, I had Ohio State because they came off this really big win at Penn State. Penn State had been number 2. So I thought that the committee would put Ohio State in there.
Yeah.
So I had Bama 1, Georgia 2, Notre Dame 3, and Ohio State 4. And you had Bama 1, Georgia 2. Who did you have 3?
Miami and Wisconsin.
Miami
because
is 3
they're
and Wisconsin
undefeated.
number
You have
4.
the Big Ten, ACC,
out of Power 5 conferences.
And then you've got 2 SEC teams with the undefeated record, with the teams and the conferences. That's generally how you would do that. Teams that have 2 losses or even the 1-loss teams, which they do have 2 1-loss teams in the top 4 right now, which to me I feel like is not really giving justice to the other teams, but that's just kind of initially what my thought was going to be. But hey, they went with Notre Dame, who has 1 loss, and then they went with Clemson, who has 1 loss. And I just
what was the big surprise, though?
Clemson.
No, to me the big surprise was they flipped Georgia and Alabama.
Oh, well, yeah. To me, you could go either way. To me, the big surprise is Clemson. That's the big surprise to me. I feel like Georgia and Alabama, hey, they're almost the exact same team. But Clemson getting blown out by Syracuse, playing in a weak ACC conference right now, to me, they don't deserve to be the number 4 team. Are they a top 10 team? Yes. But being a number 4 team in the country, I don't think that's right.
But see, I feel like I need to challenge that because the weak ACC is where Miami's coming out undefeated.
Correct.
And so the question is, do you think Miami is a better team than Syracuse? Because you had Miami in your Final 4.
Yeah, I
mean, not Syracuse, the Clemson.
Clemson, yeah. They're undefeated, and they haven't been blown out by a team that they shouldn't have been blown out to. So therefore, with being undefeated, coming out of the conference that they are in, they should be ahead of Clemson. And so I just don't see the Clemson thing right now as being the number 4. I said I was wrong with Miami, but the point is that, hey, you're undefeated. And so I was surprised by Clemson jumping that far ahead to being the number 4 team.
Well, and if you look at what they have, I was more surprised that they jumped Georgia over Alabama. And I was only surprised, not because I think they got that wrong. I actually think they got that right. When I did my prediction, I said Alabama number 1, Georgia 2. But at the end of the day, if you look at who Alabama has played versus whom Georgia has played, I think the committee got that part right. I was just surprised by it. What also shocked me was 5 and 6. So why don't we go through the rest of where they ranked?
Sure. Yeah.
The top. Well, you said let's just go through the 15. So let's do that. Go ahead.
Yeah. for what the college football playoff rankings right now, Oklahoma is 5, Ohio State is 6. You've got Penn State at 7, TCU at 8, Wisconsin at 9. Then you have Miami at 10. Then you've got Oklahoma State at 11. And then 12 is
Washington. 13 is Tech. 14 is Auburn. And rounding us out at 15 is Iowa State.
Okay, so I feel like for the most part, all those teams are pretty justified there in those rankings. And then everything else is kind of just, hey, this is where you're at. Right. 2 losses, maybe 3 losses, or you're starting to work your way back up.
Really, 16 through 25, whether you're talking about the college football playoff rankings or the AP or USA Today, you're vying at this point in the season, going into week 10, you're vying for decent bowl games.
Yeah.
You're vying for decent postseason play, because if you are 16 or under, you're probably not going to get into the college playoffs. You're not going to get into the Final Four, not with who's in front of you.
Yeah,
I mean, there has to be a whole world turned upside down type of thing for any of those teams, 16, 17, 18.
You really need to have some huge wins, basically win out to even sniff being in that top 4 range. But yeah, at this point in time, now you can't lose any games. All of these games, you have to win out. Every game is a 1-game season, essentially. And if you lose, you better lose close. If you get blown out or 14 points or whatever the case may be, it's probably going to do a lot of damage to you.
Well, let's go through who these the top teams are playing. So, of the top 4, Alabama is playing LSU this week. Georgia who does Georgia have this week?
Georgia is playing South Carolina this week.
That's right. I'm sorry. And Georgia's number 1. Sorry. So number 1, Georgia's playing South Carolina.
Yes.
Alabama's playing LSU. Notre Dame is playing Wake Forest. You might as well not even turn that game on. And then Clemson has NC State. Now, NC State has fallen that pretty much out of everybody's top rankings, all that stuff. I'm trying to think if they're in anybody's. NC State, they're number 20 on the AP.
Team. They're still a top 25 team in both rankings, both pollings. But their biggest thing is their defense. And if their defense doesn't show up, it's going to be a long game for them, because they don't have a lot of offensive weapons, but they do have a really good defense.
Well, and Clemson has everything to prove, because a lot of people don't think they should be in the top 4.
And I do not believe they should be in the top 4.
They're going to have to win out.
They're going to have to really play. So.
Well, and the interesting ones for me are 5 and 6, because both Oklahoma and Ohio State, I would make the argument with you that they deserve to be in there above Clemson right now, just because of the conferences that they are playing in.
Right.
Strength of schedule, et cetera, et cetera. So Oklahoma has the Bedlam game against Okie State, which is, they said 100 whatever year history between these two schools.
Yeah, it's like 113 or something, yeah.
And then Ohio State, to me, has a trip-up game, too, against Iowa.
Yeah.
Iowa is a tough team. They will ruin somebody's season. They own Nebraska, so we can't even talk about that. But I think they're very capable of beating Ohio State.
Right.
They just play a different style. It just depends on who controls the pace of the game.
Look, on paper, Ohio State should blow Iowa out of the water. Right now, Ohio State is really the hottest team in college football. I think they could probably beat anybody. That's Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame. I fully think that Ohio State is playing the best football in the country. I don't see anyone, maybe besides Alabama, playing better than Ohio State. They've been tested. They already have a loss. I really think JT Barrett is playing at a high level. And so on paper, this should be a blowout. But to your point, Iowa slows the ball down. They ground and pound. And I believe it is in Iowa. So therefore, you're going to have that loud stadium, Kinnick Stadium, making it real difficult on Ohio State. So I don't, like I said, for me, the biggest thing, all of these games are trip-you-up games. Miami's got Tech.
Yeah, let's go through them.
TCU has to play Texas. Again, Okie State and OU.
Who does Penn State have? Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of games right now that each team has to really show up for. These are not walk-through games.
Washington's got Oregon. And then Auburn's got A&M, and Iowa State has West Virginia. I think West Virginia could be a trip-up game for Iowa State.
Yeah.
I think Iowa State's a little bit living on a prayer. They're good, but winning breeds winning.
Right.
But historically,
really outside of the top 10, you really aren't going to have much of a chance. You really need to be in that top 10.
But I think if Iowa State has a signature win against West Virginia, they might climb their way up into the top 10.
Iowa State has to win big. If they lose, if they lose, but if they win close to West Virginia, I don't know if it's going to bump them up that much, especially if there's not a lot of movement up top.
Well, I think
maybe be 1 or 2 spots.
I believe there will be movement up top. I really do. I don't think LSU is going to get Alabama. I don't think South Carolina is going to get Georgia. But I think Clemson might have their hands full with NC State. They've been a sleeper creeper. I called an upset with them earlier. That Oklahoma State game is going to be a problem. Ohio State is going to have their hands full. I will only disagree with you on this point. I don't believe Ohio State can beat AB. I think if they play Penn State again, Penn State beats them down. That's what I honestly believe. And I'm not sold on them. I picked them last week and happened to be right by 1 point, but I'm just not sold on them.
Well, I initially would agree with you on that. I've just seen them play the last couple weeks, and they are playing with their backs against the wall. The way that they lost to Oklahoma early on in the season, I think if they were to play that game again, it could be a different outcome. And I really want OU to win out and play strong football, but they have not played great like they did to start the season. And I just don't know if they were to play that game again, OU would come out ahead.
And now
so
we have to,
it's going to be close.
As Big 12 fans, we need to make sure that TCU holds its lead, and I think they're going to have their hands full with Texas.
Absolutely. And I just think a lot of the teams are going to hold court, which is for Iowa State's case, would make it hard for them to move up. Even if they do win, West Virginia isn't ranked, and so even if they do win, it's going to be hard on them. But it's going to be a great weekend. I'm just excited.
Yeah, we're not going to officially pick games, but, I do believe that there will be some shakeups and upsets this weekend, and it'll be teams that surprise you.
I would love to see upsets and shakeups. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it would be a great weekend to sit there and watch all the games. You need to be glued to the TV because this is going to be a huge weekend, because every week from here on out it's going to impact that college football playoff ranking. And so you just got to be watching, man. That's the only thing I can say is be watching.
We will be. So you watch too.
Yeah. All right, folks. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you again.